Alright guys, welcome back to part 2. We're continuing with the course. In this video we're going to be doing exercises and following along these lessons that teach us how to accept input from a user that's going to be interacting with our programs. So the learning objectives for this section go as follows. It says you will know how to write a program which uses input from the user. You will know how to use variables to store input and print it out, and you will be able to combine strings. Input refers to any information a user gives to the program. Specifically, the Python command input reads in a line of input typed in by the user. It may also be used to display a message to the user to prompt for specific input. The following program reads in the name of the user with the input command. It then prints it out with the print command. So here we say we have a variable called name, and we assign it to call the input command from Python, asking the user what their name is. And then we can call that variable by saying, and printing what the user inputs by saying print hi there, comma, plus name. And this is how you concatenate strings or combine strings to form one longer string in Python. I'm pretty sure they'll dive more into it as the section continues. The execution of this program could look like this, and they highlight the user's input in the red color. So it's going to show what is your name, then the user inputs Paul Python, and then it's going to print back hi there, Paul Python. What this program prints out is partially dependent on input from the user. That means the execution of the program could also look like this. What is your name? Paula Programmer. Hi there, Paula Programmer. The word name in this program is a variable. I would have preferred here if they had explained this first, if they had covered variables first and then covered taking inputs from users in our programs, but that's neither here nor there. I feel like if I was teaching a lesson, that would be sort of like the way that I would prefer the content to flow, but these two topics are very closely related, so I guess doing it this way isn't too problematic. Anyways, let's continue. The word name in this program is a variable. In the context of programming, a variable is a location for storing some value, such as a string or a number. This value can be used later, and it can also be changed. So here they're giving us just a little sidebar. In principle, about naming variables. In principle, variables can be named quite freely within certain limits specified in the Python language. It is common international programming practice to name variables in English, but you may come across code where variables are named in other languages, such as the native language of the programmer. The name of the variable has no direct effect on its content, so the name in that sense does not matter. However, it can often be helpful in understanding how code functions if variables are named logically and in English. So here we have our first exercise. And you'll also notice the way I'm naming some variables sometimes will be very explicit, which is one of those fundamental programming lessons that you learn early on about self-documenting code. I'm sure we'll probably learn more about it in this course, but if people want to learn more about that, I'll leave some links down below about how useful that could be. And essentially that concept or that paradigm of writing code in that manner is by using explicit variable names, good comments, that helps the reader, somebody who comes in to read how your code looks and is structured, can follow along and understand what the program is supposed to do, even without having to run the program and actually see it do whatever it is that you say it's going to do. So self-documenting code helps somebody else. Say, for example, if you're working on a big project and you have other contributors, or somebody's coming to join the project later after you've already started, by following along with self-documenting code, it helps that new person coming into your project to be able to follow along and get up to speed very quickly. So I'm sure they'll cover that further along in the course, but that's one of those topics that you learn in college in other courses as well if you take advanced programming courses. Um, but yeah, which is a lost art in these days, but I think it's one of those things that's really, really good to do. So here we have an exercise called Name Twice, and we're instructed to please write a program which asks for the user's name and then prints it twice on 2 consecutive lines. An example of how the program should function. What is your name? Paul, and then it prints Paul Paul. So that's pretty simple. So we'll have a variable here. We can call it name. You can also just say user name, and then here we say input. What is your name? Question mark. And then we'll just print username, whoops, twice like that. And if we run it, we should get asked, what is your name? Just right here, Stefan. And it prints Stefan. So let's see if we pass our tests. And we do. And again, we can also view the model solution, which would just be the exact same thing, but they'll probably have just, oh, okay, let me log in here. Give me 1 second. Okay, so managed to log in, and you can see this is the model solution. So we have a variable called name, which stores the input that we provide to this question, what is your name? And then we print the name back twice. So here on my code, again, we have a variable called username equals input. But again, just like how they did it, because we're just storing a name, it's easier to just have the variable called name. Again, if we do test, our code should pass all the tests. Just like that, and we're good to go. And again, if we run our program, write our name, press enter, and there we go, it prints the name twice. So far so good. Okay, let us continue. Now we're going to learn about referencing a variable. A single variable can be referred to many times in a program. Name equals input. What is your name? Name is the variable name stores the input that is provided by the user. So here we can do print hi and then chain the name into that string that's being printed out. And we can do it again in a different way. We can say name, we can print the name, and then concatenate this sentence to the line that the name is printed on. And to concatenate means just to chain or to add on to. So yeah, it's one of those terms in programming that comes up a lot. So if the user gives the name Paul Python, this program prints out the following. What is your name? We input Paul Python, and then it prints out hi Paul Python, and then it also prints out Paul Python is quite a nice name. Let's have a closer look at the way the print command is used above. Within the brackets of the command, there is both text in quotation marks as well as variable names which refer to input from the user. These have been combined with a plus operator which concatenates, which that's the word I was talking about earlier, 2 strings into a single string. Strings and variables can be combined quite freely. Name, input, what is your name? And then we print hi name. Let us make sure your name is name. If the user gives the name Ellen example, this prints out what is your name? We put in Ellen example, and then it says hi Ellen example. Let me make sure your name is Ellen example. Here we have an exercise which is called name and exclamation marks. We are instructed to please write a program which asks for the user's name and then prints it out twice on a single line so that there's an exclamation mark at the beginning of the line, another between the 2 names, and a third one at the end of the line. The program should function as follows. So we're going to ask the user what their name is. They're going to input what their name is, and then we're going to print their name out in this format. So just going to have a variable here called name. Use the Python input command. Ask the user, what is your name? And then we can just print like that, then name, again, then name, and then again like that. And if we run it, we give it our name, and we can see that it does exactly what we want it to. It has an exclamation mark followed by the name, followed by another exclamation mark, followed by the name, and then with a concluding exclamation point. If we run our tests, let's see if we pass our tests. And we do. Awesome. Again, if you want, you can view the model solution to this exercise, which is exactly what we came up with. We have a variable called name, which stores the input from the user when we ask them what their name is. And then we print out the name in a string in that wonky format that the exercise asked us to do. Awesome. Let's keep going. A program can ask for more than one input. Notice how below each input command stores the received value in a different variable. So here we have a variable called name, which stores the name. Then we have a variable called email, which stores the user inputted email address. Then we have another variable called nickname, which stores that user's nickname. And then we can print all this information back out. So we can print, let's make sure we got this right. And then we print your name. We read back to them the name. We print their email address. We read that back to them, and then as well as their nickname. And this is how the program is going to look like when it's being run. So what is your name? Francis Fictitious. What is your email address? francis99@example.com. What is your nickname? Fran. And let's make sure we got this right. Your name, Francis Fictitious. Email address, francis99@example.com. And your nickname, Fran. So the user inputs information, and then our program reads that information back to them. If the same variable is used to store more than one input, each new value will replace the previous one. For example, address. And we ask for the input, what is your address? Then we print back, so you live at address plus address. I mean, we concatenate the address to that string. And then the same thing, but we're reusing that variable name. As you can see, address and address appears twice in this program. So now, let's say, for example, in this instance, we say our address is 1 Police Plaza. And then in this instance, and then we print that out. So we'd say, so you live at address 1 Police Plaza. And then we ask them again, please type in a new address, but we're saving that new value into the same variable name. So now when we say your address is 2 Police Plaza here, then it's gonna print 2 Police Plaza instead of 1 Police Plaza. So this is the example execution of the program. Again, what is your address? Python path 101, flat 3D. Then it's gonna read that back to us. And then it says, please type in a new address, and we say new road 999. And then it's gonna read back new road 999. This means that if the same variable is used to store 2 inputs in succession, there is no way to access the first input value after it has been replaced by the second. So again, when we store the value, what is your address the first time, and then we use that same variable name here, then whatever we stored here gets overwritten. So if again we say our address is 1 Police Plaza, when we use the variable name address again and we type in 2 Police Plaza, address no longer points to 1 Police Plaza. It's going to point to 2 Police Plaza. So this is how the program might look like. It says, what is your address? We say Python path 10. I'm sure this was supposed to say 101. And it says, please type in a new address. And we say program is walk23. Your address is now program is walk23. Even though we stored Python first to the address variable, and then we store program as walk23 also to the address variable, the program is going to read back the most recently assigned value. Here we have another exercise, which instructs us to please write a program which asks for the user's name and address. The program should also print out the given information as follows. Given name, Steve, family name, Sanders, street address, 91 Station Road, city and postal code, London EC056AW, and then it's going to read back all that information. So here we have name is equal to input, given name, Then we're going to say family name. And then we're going to say, in fact, here we could do first name, family name, and then address. And we can do city and postal code. Same thing here, city and postal code. Apologize for any background noise. And then here we're just going to read back these details. So we're going to say print first name plus a space plus family name, and that's going to print whatever. So in this instance over here, if we say first given name is Steve, family name is Sanders, it's just going to print Steve Sanders. And then here we're going to say print our address, and then print city and postal code. Again, this is one of those variable names that's, purposes for making the code self-documenting. I'm sure people who are more clever than me can come up with even shorter names that are just as succinct and also as clear to read and make the code self-documenting. So if we run it and say, what's our given name? Stefan. What's our family name? Gira. Address is 1 Police Plaza. And postal code is 10013. We're going to say New York. And then here we go. It says Stefan Wangira, 1 Police Plaza, New York 10013. So let's hit our test, see if we pass. And there we do. And again, if you're interested, you can click on View Model Solution. And same thing. Now, this is awesome. I'm glad that we see this. So let's compare my code here. I'll put this side by side so you can see. And their code, the model solution. So as you can see, the way I name my variables, it's in this little wonky format, which is called, in programming, called camel case. Now, camel case is, again, just a programming convention in which we name things, or the variable names that we use will always have whatever the first letter of the first word be lowercase, and then the first letter of every subsequent word in the variable name will have a capital a capital letter. So for example here, city and postal code. As you can see, city is all lowercase, then every subsequent word has their first letter be capitalized. So city and is capital A, postal is capital P, and code is capital C. Same thing for first name, right? First name, first, lowercase f, lowercase word, and then name has an uppercase N. Same thing for family name, lowercase f, uppercase N. Address is one word, so we don't need to do any wonky styling here. Just have it as one lowercase word. But as you can see, they, in the model solution, use underscores. Now, this is another programming convention that you can employ when you're naming your variables. Snake case, I'm sorry, I said camel case. Snake case is what this is called, is when you use these underscores. And so every word is differentiated or spaced out by using these underscores. Because if you were to do, say, for example, first name equals, then this is going to give you an error because you can't have spaces between variable names. But in this convention with camel case, that's one way you can do it, and snake case is another way you can do it. You can also just have everything as one lowercase word, lowercase string, but again, that's a little bit finicky to read. But if you do it with a camel case or a snake case, we can clearly see what the names of these variables are. And we can, when it multiple words being used, we can clearly see what those words are, and it's easier to read, and it makes the code self-documenting. So this is one of those conventions. And again, as I said earlier, there's some stuff here that I wish they would cover a lot sooner, but they're kind of just throwing you a little bit into the deep end. But yeah, this is one of the things with experience I'll try to explain. Maybe they might cover it. I haven't gone through the material in full before I started recording this course, so we're experiencing this at the same exact time. But again, this is one of those things that when you take more programming lessons and more programming courses, and you go on industry, and you look at maybe if you watch tutorials on YouTube, when you're watching courses like this one that I'll just follow along, you'll be able to learn. But again, these are naming conventions in programming that are used quite often. One of them being camel case, another one being the snake case. So if you want first name like that, like how they did it, family name, et cetera, I'm just gonna leave it like this. There's also, I forgot what the other one is. It capital case? Capital case, I think it's called. So you can do this instead. Now, depending on the programming language, sometimes you might not want to use capital letters for your variable names, like that, like first name like this, because the language might interpret as being an embedded keyword, like a built-in keyword that comes with the language. But again, that's a more thorough topic. But you can learn more about that, I'm pretty sure. Mozilla developer notes, something on pretty sure they should have a lesson on this. Yeah. So you can learn more. So this is camel case, again, what I was covering. There's screaming snake case. So this is all capital by using the underscores. You have Pascal case, right? Not capital case, but Pascal case. This is very common when programming in Pascal, how you name your variable. So you have each first letter of each word being capitalized instead of having the first one be lowercase and everything else be uppercase. So I'll leave this in the description so you can read more on it, but it's a really good lesson. It's one of those things you should probably try to hone in on and learn earlier on. I thought they would have covered this in this lesson before we started taking in inputs when we were learning about variables, but they didn't. But it is what it is. So we'll keep going. This exercise is called Fix the Code Utterances. Here is a program which should ask for 3 utterances and print them out like so. The first part, hickory, the second part, dickory, the third part, dog. And it's gonna read back hickory, dickory, dog. However, there's something wrong with the code below. Please fix it. Okay, so part, right, so we're reassigning this variable part twice, 3 times. So we have it the first time, and then we overwrite it, and then we overwrite it again, and then we want to print part, which isn't gonna work because whatever's gonna be stored here is gonna be overridden when we put in new information here, and it's gonna be overridden again when we put in new information here. So it's not gonna work. It's just gonna print whatever is the last thing we assigned it to this variable called part. So we can say part 1, part 2, and part 3, like that. So here the first part, we can change this to say the second part, and here the third part. Then we can change this to part 1, part 2, part 3, and if we run this, hickory, dickory, dock, it prints out hickory, dickory, dock. But again, it's not in the format that we want it to be here. So we need to add these little dashes here in order for the final output to look like it should, and also add this exclamation point at the end. So pretty simple. We just do that. Same thing here. Add a plus sign to concatenate, and then there as well. And then when we to run again, give it the same inputs, hickory, dickory, dock, and then boom, we see that same output the same way that it wants it to be printed here. So when we do a run the test, see if we pass. And there it is. Again, if you do the view the model solution, they did it this way: part one, part two, part three. But this was the the important part was making sure the final printed out version is in this format, and making sure that the strings here are also say the first part, the second part, and the third part. Awesome. Here we have another exercise called story, and it instructs us to please write a program which prints out the following story. The user gives a name and a year which should be inserted into the printout. So we ask the user, please type in a name, the input Mary, please type in a year, 1572, and then it prints out Mary is a valiant knight born in the year 1572. One morning, Mary woke up to an awful racket. A dragon was approaching the village. Only Mary could save the village's residents. So we're just going to have here a variable called name, which takes in an input. Going to prompt, please type in a name. Then here we're going to have another variable called date, which takes in the date. Then we're going to print Mary. Oh, sorry, not Mary. It's going to be name plus is a valiant knight born in the year plus date plus then one morning name. This should have a space here. Woke up to an awful racket. A dragon was approaching the village. Only plus name plus could save the village's residents. And now, when we run, please type in a name. I'll put in my name. We'll type in the year. I don't know, 1201. Stefan is a valiant knight, born in the year 1201. One morning, Stefan woke up to an awful racket. A dragon was approaching the village. Only Stefan could save the village's residents. So if we run our tests, and there we go. Again, as we always do, we can view the model solution. Same thing that we just did. They just used the variable called year instead of date, which I think in this instance makes more sense because we want to store the year, not just the general date. Because a date could be, the day, the month, and the year, but if we just want specifically the year, we know it's just that. So using the variable name year here makes more sense. And again, if we do test, now because we changed this to year instead of date, we get this error that date is not defined because the variable name is changed. If we do test one more time after changing that, we should pass, and yes, we do. And that's about it. We've been recording for about, 20 minutes, I think? I'm not actually sure. Anyways, I think that's a good place to leave this chapter. So thank you so much for tuning in. We did a bunch of exercises, a lot more than I was expecting. Again, not too happy with the flow of things. I think in the future, once we go through all this stuff, I might do a separate sort of introductory course of my own that will, try to cover some of these topics with a little bit better flow. I would have liked if they were to cover variables before they covered accepting user inputs in our programs, and I also like them to cover the different naming conventions when it comes to variable names, and explain why we use certain conventions and not others, and why some conventions are language specific and others are just general. But I think that's really my only two qualms so far. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this section and my walkthrough of these exercises. We'll be back again with another part. Again, I try to keep these videos pretty short so that they're digestible and you can just sit down 20 minutes, 30 minutes, do the exercises, follow along, and then move on to do something else with your time, and then come back another time, another 20, 30 minutes. So yeah, that's about it. We hit the 30-minute mark, so I think that's going to be a pretty good place to end it. So we'll be back again with the next video covering more lessons and exercises from this course. Thank you so much for watching.